in a world full of negative people. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is a Shark Farmer podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever.
And welcome again to Shark Farmer Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey, and today we're gonna do something we don't do that often. We're gonna have a return guest. We're gonna talk with Brooke Clay. How you doing, Brooke?
I am doing really well. Actually, it's Brooke Clay Taylor now. It's been a lot of things have happened since the last time we talked.
I know. We had you on the podcast. You invited me out to Denver to go to your rural influencer thing. I had you on the podcast, and I was so impressed with you that we worked with you, and then you met a guy, and the whole world went to hell.
It did go to hell. Not because of him, but a lot of things have changed in the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get caught up with you. Obviously, your last couple years have been challenging, hectic, blessed. I don't even know what to say, but we'll get into that. But first, Brooke, I know we're going to do something that I know you approve of. We're going to pay some bills. How about that?
Oh, I love paying bills. Let's do it. Show me those ads, Rob.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Shark Farmer TV because Rob didn't read his contract that well, and we're still doing ads for this. But hey, it is supposed to be coming. They said they wanted it in quarantine time, so I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or what the deal is. But the station said that it would be good quarantine programming. So hopefully, a little after Easter, maybe before Easter, around Easter, sometime around that time, they're going to launch the first one, and then we're going to go from there. It is a show promoting agriculture. It's almost like a Funniest Videos meets Tosh.0 meets I don't know what. I just please watch it, and please have sponsors watch it because, yeah, that would be fantastic. Does that sound good, Brooke?
Yeah, it sounds great. I want to watch. I'm interested.
Now, you're just saying that because you're nice.
No, I really love funny videos. I mean, what else are we doing in the world during quarantine? Like, we have everyone migrating over to TikTok. Like, we need more funny videos to keep us off of TikTok back where we belong.
Well, see, here's the thing. They want to talk about, stuff that's popular during quarantine. So that puts my show up there with the Tiger King. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I knew you were going to bring up the Tiger King. I cannot wait to send you the photo of holding a baby cub because I have been to his park as an Oklahoman. It's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I have been there pre all of the crazy, or maybe the crazy was already happening.
Oh, I think the crazy was I think the crazy was well ingrained in him from day one.
Oh, man. It is good content. I've only gone through 6 episodes, and I have the last one tonight. I'm super excited.
Okay, so with that show, though, every time you watch an episode, you're like, it cannot get any crazier. Well, that goes the whole 7 episodes. I will say that.
It is wild. Like Netflix, I don't think they did it on purpose, obviously, but they really struck gold by having this released during quarantine.
They absolutely did. But hey, Brooke, I've got a question now. Since you were on the podcast last time, you've been married. Now, you were dating last time, and you were complaining that on the dating sites, all these guys were holding up pictures of fish. So was your dating picture holding a tiger?
No, missed opportunity. I should have. But while you were saying that, all I could think was, wow, I am such a cliche because my husband manages a wildlife refuge and my life is now all things wild game. And so he is while he would never, ever be on a dating app or he barely uses social media, he is the guy that's always fishing and out and one with nature. And
make sure he doesn't listen to that old podcast.
I hope he doesn't.
Okay, what's your husband's name?
His name is Damon.
Damon, and he's in a wildlife park. So how many wives does he have?
So he is a assistant manager of a wildlife refuge. So he actually works for the Department of the Interior. So a little different than the tiger zoo parks that we've all been streaming constantly this past week.
Okay, I'll take your word on it. I mean, I have no reason to Anyway, yes, Shark Farmer TV. It's going to be on RFD and then on YouTube later. So please watch it. And that's the end of the ad. Okay, Brooke Clay Taylor. Yeah, like I said, it's been, I don't know, how many years since you had that thing in Denver?
Oh, almost 3 years.
So 3 years. I really got to know you out when you were doing that. Funny not to go back to the ad, but one of the people that we feature on the television show is Aaron Inley Brown, who I met out there.
Hey, I'm a connector. If there's anything that I am really great at in this world, it's not being the star myself, but it's connecting all of the people who need to know each other. So you're welcome. Just doing my job.
Okay. You need to knock that connection stuff off now because this is about you, all right?
Oh, you got it. I'm here. I'm ready to party. Corona time.
Okay. For the people that don't know who you are, give us a little background.
I'm a small town ranch girl from Oklahoma. I worked for big advertising agencies across the country. And then when I decided to move back to Oklahoma, I was like, what am I going to do to be able to live in the middle of nowhere and have those large national and international clients? And the answer was launch my own business, of course. So I'm a digital strategy consultant full time. That's what I do for a living. I've worked on a TV show as an ag expert. I've worked in some commercials. You might have seen the Steven Adams Smashing Steaks video. That was one of my biggest projects in the past 2 years. I do a lot of really cool things with food and ag companies.
You were so good that we contracted you for a while because we needed help with what we were doing. And you set us up great. We got this really cool website. You helped us with some other things. You made us look in different directions than we were looking. So you're very good at what you do.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. It's fun. I love being creative, and that's my jam. So
yeah. Then you met that lion guy.
Then I met the lion guy. I haven't actually met the lion guy, unfortunately, but I have held some of his tiger cubs.
Easy. It's a family show.
So that is what I do full time, right? So I am a digital strategy consultant. I work on really cool projects for agriculture, but the past year it's kind of taken a different turn, and it's been a little different this past year. I've still been able to work with a few of my clients, but I had a different obstacle that I didn't see coming. Like one second I was on the beach in Nice watching the sunset, living that bachelorette life, right? And a year later, I have eloped with my high school best friend. I had a baby, and I got a cancer diagnosis on that very same day. So life kind of said, hold my beer, watch this.
That's kind of understating the year you had. All right, well, let's parse all of this. Okay, you said he was your high school best friend. So how'd you guys reconnect?
This is crazy. So when I left Oklahoma in 2013, I lived in North Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, working for advertising agencies in Milwaukee and Boston with national and international clients. And on the flip side, he was living in Minnesota, Nebraska, Montana, working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Mm-hmm. And he was living a very remote, rural life. Very coincidentally, we happened to move back to Oklahoma on two very opposite timelines within 2 weeks of each other. His work brought him back to manage a wildlife refuge here in Oklahoma, and I was moving back from Nashville. We didn't immediately start dating. We were just kind of fell back into that old friendship thing, right? Being those high school best friends. And now here we are.
You cannot deny love.
Yeah, honestly, it was like a Hallmark movie, right? He proposed to me at Christmas time. I'm telling you, it was like ridiculous. It was like, think about it. Like the two high school friends moved back. The snow is falling. He proposes at Christmas. Like it was gross. And then we were like, you know what? Let's just embrace it. If we're going to have this like ridiculous Hallmark story, let's elope in the most ridiculous Hallmark movie way. And so we did. We planned an elopement, but our parents and best friends came, mm-hmm. and we got married in Big Sky, Montana, in the middle of a snowstorm. There was a horse-drawn sleigh. I can't even make this up, Rob. Like, it was the most picturesque ridiculous situation that should have been made into a movie.
Have you sold the
And I thought
rights
that
to
was
it?
not yet, but Hallmark, I am available if you're interested.
When you write this, though, you have to be working for a magazine or a newspaper, and you're going back to your small town to, I don't know, do whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I have considered who would play me in the Hallmark movie, and I've leaned toward Mandy Moore or who's the girl who's in The Ghost Whisperer? I can't ever remember her name, but
Oh, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. You know, I think she would play a really great Brooke Clay Taylor.
I'm thinking more the Angelina Jolie, because I think you have a side to you that would cut somebody. Yeah.
I am from the same state as the Tiger King, so who knows? Oh my God, that was a terrible joke. Don't put that one in there.
Nope, that one stayed in.
I thought in a lot of ways, eloping to Montana, this was going to be the cherry on top of the cake. Everything else was going to be smooth sailing, right? Like, we were expecting our first little one, and I was like, this is no problem. I worked probably 60 hours plus a week while pregnant. I was working on video shoots for clients. It took my doctor and my husband to shut down a few shoots the last month of pregnancy, because they're like, listen, you cannot get on a plane. You're too pregnant. And I was like, oh, it's fine. So I postponed a lot of shoots, and I was like, we'll be back at it in September, and I had clients that were working, they were like, awesome, we'll do this in September. It'll be great. And then life just had a whole nother thing coming, and I never actually got around to those shoots this past fall.
Let me admit something very embarrassing to you. All right.
Sure. Go.
You tweeted, and you tweet in series, which confuses me. So part of this is your fault, but you tweeted that you were expecting, and I happened to see it right away. And I replied, oh, congratulations. And then you talked about the diagnosis afterwards. So I quick deleted it. And then I was too embarrassed to ask you what was going on for quite a while.
A lot of that's my fault. So I had this great idea. As a social strategist that was like, hey, I put everything out there on social media, and I tell my clients to tell their story. And I talked to my husband, and I was like, what if instead of telling the world that we're having a baby, we wait until the baby gets here and we say, surprise, we had a baby. And he's like, that's a great idea. That's fantastic. That's all well and good until you learn you have cancer on the same day. You waited to tell the world that you've had a baby. So we had two big announcements, and there really wasn't a good way to put that out there.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, I got a baby and a cancer on the same day. And we announced, and it made sense to tell the world that we had a baby first, right? It is her birthday. She doesn't need to share it with cancer, although she will share it with cancer. She'll probably carry that with her whole life, unfortunately. But yeah, we have this great baby. Her name is Elsie. I named her after my great-grandmother, who was a farmer in central Indiana, part of a farming family. And she's amazing. She looks nothing like me. She looks everything like her father. I somehow created a blue-eyed ginger baby. Didn't see that coming, but here she is.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because and for everybody listening, let's mark that she said that, not me.
Okay. For anyone who hasn't seen my picture, who knows who I am a dark-complected, dark brown eyes, long dark hair before all of this person. And I have a very pale, blue-eyed ginger baby, and we look nothing alike. We do have one thing in common, and that is when we shaved my head because we knew we were going to lose my hair, my husband pointed out, I have a birthmark on the back of my head that I didn't know about. And she actually has the same one. So had I not shaved my head, I would not know that we share a birthmark.
Oh, all right. Take me through this, right? Take me through the timeline of it. So yes, you get pregnant, and then what happens after that?
For those who don't know, when you are pregnant, there are a lot of doctor's appointments involved. They like to see you a lot. And at one of my appointments, I brought up that, hey, something's feeling a little funny here up in my breast area. And they said, oh, that's nothing. That's just getting ready to turn into a dairy cow for your baby.
Okay. You did go to a doctor, right? Not a vet?
I did go to a doctor, but,
Okay.
we're on an ag show. So I let it go because I'm not the professional. And then a few months go by and I bring it up again. And again, they swept it under the rug. And then on my 38-week appointment, I literally took my shirt off in the room. I'm bare bellied, ripping my shirt off. And I said, I'm not leaving this room until you feel this. And it was the PA, and she felt it. And I saw the color drain from her face. And I knew right then, like, I'm in trouble. So that was on a Thursday in the afternoon, late afternoon. And I met with a breast health specialist at 10 a.m. the very next day, which was a Friday. He took a biopsy, which they don't usually do in the same appointment. He had a great poker face. And I went through the weekend. I organized the baby room. Damon had hung out with his friends. It was a total normal weekend. And on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, that nice man called me and said, kiddo, it's cancer. And I waddled into the back room and I told my husband, and I just cried for 15 minutes because 15 minutes later, my OB called and said, how quickly can you get to Tulsa? We live about an hour and a half away from Tulsa. So I said, not quick, but we'll get there. And like any first-time mom, I was an overachiever. And while I wasn't due for another 2 weeks, my hospital bag was already packed. And I mentioned to my husband, Damon, I said, hey, we should grab that just in case. He said, okay. So we're on our way to the doctor's office. And
Whoa. Let me try to get this understanding. Now, when you get this call, were you expecting this, or was this related to the cancer diagnosis?
From the OB?
Yes.
So his point was, he said, come in, let's make a plan. Let's figure out what we need to do because you have cancer and you have a baby. So let's come in, and all we're going to do is talk about it. We're going to figure out what we need to do because obviously we can't do any testing because you're pregnant. So great. So we're just going to go to the doctor's office. No big deal. So we're on our way to the doctor's office when my OB calls back and he says, hey, why don't you just meet me at the hospital? Let's have a baby today.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, all right. So
don't just skip over that.
No.
I mean, you're in the
honestly,
car. I can't imagine the day that you're having because, I mean, all of this is
9 a.m.
Yes.
Right?
So when they tell you that, what's going through your mind?
Honestly, I was in so much shock that we had about 30 minutes and I was like, I guess we need to call people. I hadn't really set in yet. It was just, I guess we need to call our parents and tell them we're having a baby today. And so honestly, like I was 100% in shock, Rob. So we get to the hospital, we check in, everyone on the floor already knew our situation. They already knew I had cancer, like it had spread like wildfire, right? So they are treating us like royalty, which is great, but also it makes you feel like worse, right? Because you're like, oh man, I'm a goner, like you don't know. And so they're obviously rushing you to have a baby. So like things must be pretty terrible. So I learned at 8 o'clock I had cancer, and at 2:04 I became a mom via C-section. She joins the world. She was only 2 weeks early, so she was perfectly healthy, 6 pounds 2 ounces. She was great. So then there was obviously the chaos of people, starting to find us in the world and reaching out and becoming a mom. And then it got real the very next day. That man that I met on Friday that...
Oh, okay. Whoa. You keep
Hold on, am I skipping over it?
Yes. You need to feather the accelerator. I mean, you just had a baby, right?
No, this is how it went down.
I know,
but how fast it went.
When you had this baby, were you able to hold it, enjoy it, or was this huge cloud just looming over you that you've also got cancer?
Rob, I'm going to be honest. So here's when it got real. I'm on the table in the room where you get the C-section. Damon has taken Elsie out of the room. I'm there by myself. My nose was itching because of morphine, which apparently I have an allergic reaction to. So I was itching all over. And the anesthesiologist was like brushing my hair out of my face. I just started crying and I said, oh my gosh, I have cancer. And they're like literally like putting me back together and sewing me up. And the anesthesiologist said, "Oh, I know, hon, I'm here for you." And he was like wiping my tears. And that was the only time I cried that day because I wanted to be a mom and I was in shock and I didn't know what was going on. But here was this baby. I didn't know anything about my cancer, right? Just that I had it. And I was like, I hope that I get to see her on her first birthday. That's us. I'm going to be honest. That's like all I could think about that day was, I hope I'm here this time next year. And that's the only time I thought about cancer that day. I let it go and I just figured out how to be a mom, you know. But this is how fast it went for me. I'm going to be honest. I know it's not like fluffy and it's not pretty, but
No,
it's
it's
right?
not that.
It
It's just
wasn't.
I can't. You know, you try to put yourself in people's shoes, right? I think it's impossible to put yourself anywhere close to what you went through that day. But yes, I knew at some point I would have figured that it would have hit you like a ton of bricks, and it sounds like it did after the delivery.
I mean, it wasn't a ton. It was like one brick. Okay. And this is going somewhere. Okay. I promise.
Okay.
It was like one brick hit me that day. And the very next day, so I'm less than 24 hours out from having a baby, that man who took the biopsy comes to my hospital room with my biopsy results and notes. You know, he sits down and I still have all of the notes he took that day. And he explains what type of cancer I have. He explains that he can't tell me exactly my diagnosis because I haven't had tests. So what he says to me is, we're going to give you 1 week to be a mom, and your only job is to be a mom. That's it. He said, on Monday, we start test week. I said, okay. So that week, I sucked it up. I had, a C-section, and you're supposed to take it easy. I convinced them to let me leave the hospital a day early so I could have another day with my baby. I was a mom. Like, she was pretty little, so we had to go to a few stores to buy preemie clothes because she fit into none of the clothes I had for her. Oh, and another thing, I didn't know she was a she until she joined the world. We were just setting ourselves up for all kinds of shock. Like, we didn't want to know the sex of our baby until she showed up. So we had all of these neutral clothes, but now all of a sudden I'm ready to buy pink and bows and all the things. So I'm trying to suck it up, right? Like, I'm fine. I can waddle into the store. It'll be okay. So 1 week from the day of diagnosis, I started test week. And that week I had every test you can imagine. I had a PET scan, a mammogram, a MUGA heart scan, you name it, something happened that week. And then the very next week I had a surgery to get my port, and I started chemo within 2 weeks of having a baby. Remember, I told you I had a brick that day that I had Elsie, I had a moment. I didn't have another breakdown, truly, and I'm going to be honest with you. I went through all of the chemo, still working as much as I could. I took a back seat to the Stephen Adams campaign for this year, but I still was the executive producer, making sure everything happened, but I couldn't show up on set that day because I had a surprise staph infection, which made me have 2 extra surgeries. I didn't have a chance to let the bricks, kind of fall my way because I didn't want to. I just needed to get through it. But let me tell you, those bricks all hit me in January once chemo was over, because you have a solid month between your last day of chemo and when you have surgery. So I've had a double mastectomy, and I had a month to sit around and just think about that surgery. And that surgery was really important because the type of cancer that I had, past tense, is very aggressive. It's triple negative, which means it's not driven by any hormones at all. Because of that, there aren't those annoying commercials you see. It's take this medicine for breast cancer. None of those are applicable for me because it's not hormone driven. So for me to have the best chances, I needed to have no residual cancer cells in the pathology from that surgery. And it's very rare that would happen with the type of cancer I had. And so all those bricks really, truly hit me in January. That's really where I started to process all of the things. I thought, oh my gosh, what happened to me? How did this happen? How was I even trying to work this past fall? What was I even doing? I mean, it was just too much. I had surgery. I recovered from surgery. Surgery is terrible. You basically are a T-Rex for 3 weeks. You can't use your arms. You can't sit up. Here's the good one for you. I had the C-section, right? And then I went straight into chemo. So it wasn't like I was rehabbing and doing crunches, right? I just went straight into it. And then they're telling you, if you need to sit up, use your abs, don't use your arms. I was like, well, I guess I just lay here now. Like, I don't know what you guys want me to do. I tell you all of that. That was February, right? So I'm coming out of February. I'm about to start radiation this next week, but I have this time, and this is supposed to be the time where I'm thriving. Like I feel great. I have my own eyebrows and my own eyelashes. Everything is going right in the world. My immune system, it's on its way up. It's not 100% where it's supposed to be. And then all of a sudden, the world just like decides that we're all going to go into quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in quarantine since August, and I'm ready to come out of quarantine. And here we are again. So welcome to my terrible party, everyone. It's not fun, but I've been doing it, and you can do it too.
I mean, that's an incredible story. It takes me a second just to even kind of wrap my head around what you've had to go through and the range of emotions and the up and downs, because anybody that's had a kid, right, will tell you that's just, it's so life-changing. It's so amazing. You want to have the time to enjoy that. And it sounds like that, at least that first week, was a real blessing for you.
Mm-hmm. It was. And looking back, honestly, there was a pretty good chance, given the cancer I had and the size of my tumor, learning later there's another tumor, that could have been the only week I had, really. It didn't look good from the beginning with the type of cancer. I was really blessed in that it wasn't in my lymph nodes, which shocked my surgeon, given the size of my tumor, given the timeline of how long it had probably been growing. I'm happy to say that for now it looks pretty good. That, you know, I'll be around for Elsie's 5th birthday. There was no residual cancer, but here's what I can tell you, and this is why what's going on in the world gives me more anxiety than I've had in the past 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I need radiation, Rob. Like, I don't want it. No one wants radiation, right? You don't want to go every day, Monday through Friday, and have radiation beams shot at you, right? But radiation takes my reoccurrence chances from somewhere around 30-ish%. It takes it all the way down to 1%. And that's only effective if I get it in the window that I need to get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So radiation needs to start around 8 weeks from surgery. Well, that needs to happen now. So with everything going on in the world, you can see where this is a little too real for me, right? Like, my immune system is compromised. I have to go out into public Monday through Friday for the next 5 weeks, and people aren't taking it seriously. And so when everyone says, oh, it's only going to affect, you know, a small percentage, I'm like, hey guys, how you doing? That's me.
Yeah.
Hey.
Which I think some people find it very easy to say because they don't know anybody. That's the only reason I think they could say it. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the people that say, well, death is going to happen. Why are we going to shut down everything just for whatever percentage of the population? I mean, let's throw out the fact that we don't know. All right. If anything this year has proven to us is we don't know. But let's say we do know, all right, you're going to lose 1% of the population if you're going to shut down the economy. What if you're the 1%? Or what if your spouse is a 1%? Or what if your baby is a 1%? I mean, it's a lot different. And it is frustrating when you see that on social media. You're very good at what you do. You're very good at working on social media. You did a post that I thought was phenomenal at describing this without being the finger wagger. You know, that's the whole thing, right? Because then you get arguing back and forth. You put a face to this. You hopefully made some people think, you know, instead of going out and partying or something and not washing their hands and stuff like that. I thought the post was well done. It was classy. It gave us some of your story on it. And I mean, honestly, it set me back so much that I texted you and asked you to do this podcast.
Sure. And I mean, it's hard for me, right? Because if you think about it, only 2 years ago, I was gallivanting around Europe with one of my best girlfriends, drinking wine on the beach, right? I'm a fun haver. I get spring break, I get wine night, like I get all of these things. I get how great this is, and I get how hard it is to stay at home. I'm an extrovert. I get that like staying home is not fun, but I do also know like I'm also not the person you think would have got cancer. And so, I own my own business. I have the fairy tale wedding. I have a new baby. I'm not the person that you say, hey, that girl's going to get breast cancer at 32 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of put that into perspective, I'm not the 1% that you're thinking about, right? Like, I don't want this either, but know that those of us who are compromised, we're taking it seriously. We're not 100% depending on everyone else to take care of us. We're washing our hands. We're social distancing. Like, I'm Lysoling my car when I get in it after I get back from the doctor's office. We're doing the work too. We're not expecting everyone just to save us. We're going to save ourselves too, but we have to work hand in hand here. This is bigger than any one of us.
Trying to think of when that maybe you did that Tuesday, and
I think so.
it was like we could have done the podcast Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm like, let's wait because this thing has gotten so crazy. You never know from day to day. And when this comes out on next Tuesday, who knows what's going to happen with all this Corona stuff and that. Again, if you have not gone and seen the way that Brooke has handled this, her Twitter is @RuleGoneUrban. Like I said, I think you've handled it probably the best I've seen out of everybody because everybody gets so defensive. Everybody just starts fighting and finger wagging. You put your personal story out there to make people think twice. And I want to thank you for that.
I've worked with clients on sharing their stories for marketing purposes, right? Like that's the business side of it. Share your story because down the line, it's going to ensure that consumers feel trust in your product. It's going to help the entire ag and food industry as a whole, or specifically your brand. And I kind of took those principles when I thought about it and I said, if I can tell my clients this and I can't apply it to my own very personal situation, like what am I even doing? And so I have shared the good, bad, and the ugly through social media through this whole process. Man, I have shared some selfies, Rob. I'm sure you've seen them. And they're not great. I would say I was a pretty cute girl before all this went down. I looked like potato. Like I called myself Frank. Steroids took over during chemo. I was bald. I had no eyebrows. I was like puffier, and in places I didn't even know you could be puffy. Like I didn't know that 2 days postpartum would be favorable to 5 months into chemo. Like I wasn't mentally prepared for that. And I've shared all of those things because no one shares that part of the cancer journey. People say, they kind of glorify chemo and that you're a fighter, you're so strong, you're so inspirational. And it's like, hey, if you are recently diagnosed, you need to know what's about to happen so you can mentally prepare for it. That's kind of, been the hill that I've stood on is let me share what's going to happen 5 months from now. So when you get there, you're not shocked like I was. Like no one prepared me for those things. So I'm sharing them. I've shared it from the chemo chair. I've introduced people to my nurses. Hey, I am an open book when it comes to this because there is no book for you get cancer and a baby on the same day. And so if I need to share some chapters of mine, so someone else, and I have made Instagram friends since then who were also pregnant when they found out that they had cancer. It is more prevalent than you would hope or think or wish. It's heartbreaking, but it is. And so I've been sharing it, and I just want to make it relatable. And I don't want to be the pity party, right? I'm not terrified of Corona. I want to be realistic about it. If I were to get COVID-19, I am a high risk, so probably wouldn't be a mild case. It would set back my radiation because they for sure wouldn't let me in the building until I, recovered and did 2 weeks of quarantine. That would in turn push back my radiation, which then pushes it outside of the window, which means most likely, again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say this to the percentages specifically, but I don't believe it would put me down into the 1% chance of reoccurrence that if everything goes on schedule is where it is. And so for me, this now becomes life and death, right? Like I want to be at my child's 5th birthday. I want to have long hair again. And I want her to never remember the fact that her first year of life was nothing but doctor's appointments and none of them were for her.
How bad is chemo?
I'm going to level with you. So not all chemo is the same. There is not one chemo for all cancers. So I had 4 different kinds of chemotherapy. The first one is nicknamed on the street the Red Devil. It's that bad.
That sounds pretty bad.
Yeah. It was so bad. Okay, so the first few days, so the actual chemo drug, it's red. You can see it as they're putting it into your IV, and you sweat it out during the next couple days. Like all of your liquids become a little bit red tinted. So I would wake up in a full-blown sweat, the next few days.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that because they put me in medically induced menopause. So I went from having a baby to menopause. I don't recommend that. My poor husband. My baby would be crying and I wouldn't be able to grab her out of her bassinet because I would be covered in this like red tinted sweat. So I would have to take a shower first before I could pick her up. It was pretty bad, Rob. I'm tough. I'm going to John Wayne myself through it. Like I'm just going to do it, pull myself up by my bootstraps. But there by month 5, the chemotherapy I was in, then it was called carboplatin. Man, I don't think everyone has the reaction to that I did. Man, it took me down. It took me down for a solid 2 weeks after. So I got it every 3 weeks. And for 2 weeks, I was basically couch ridden. I couldn't do much. Going to get the mail, that was about the most energy I could use at one time. It gave me some really weird side effects. I got toxicity from it. So I got a hand trimmer, which sent me straight into the MRI to make sure I didn't have brain mets. It's tough, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's this whole thing of, you're such an inspiration, regardless of who is going through chemo. And I don't think people are sharing the real, right? You're sharing the bald selfie and chemo and I'm so strong and I'm doing this. Well, that's like one day. It's like a 30-second glimpse of the week. The rest mm-hmm. of it, sure, you're trying to get groceries and you're cleaning the house and you're trying to work, but I've never been through something like that. I don't ever want to do it again. I mean, I don't think anyone would willingly sign up for it, but Rob, I don't ever want to do that again.
Well, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, I know you, but I don't. I mean, we've worked together quite a bit, but I mean, we've never vacationed or hung out or anything like that, right?
Sure.
What I know about you is that you're nuts. You don't stop. So if something's actually going to put you down, it had to be, believe me, I'm guessing it's going to be a lot worse than I could have ever handled if you really struggled with it.
Maybe I'm not as tough as the other people who are going through it, but let's just say I would tell my nurses during it, I'm like, this is what we should be doing to terrorists. This is it. Let me talk to who's in charge because I know exactly how to stop terrorism. It's like, give them all chemo. That's the answer.
You say a lot of jokes in this that I'm not sure if I'm supposed to laugh at or not.
I mean, if you don't go through it with some laughter or with some joy, like, what's the point? I've had a lot of people say, like, you have a unique perspective on this. I'm like, man, this is just who I am. But let me tell you, you can't make it through the past year that I've gone through without laughing at something. Even if you're laughing yourself and calling yourself Frank the Potato, you just have to embrace it because it is ridiculous. Lifetime's not scripting this. Like, there's not a movie about someone who has a Hallmark wedding, falls in love with their high school best friend, gets a cancer and a baby at the same time. This isn't a thing. This is better than that because it's so ridiculous. But you have to have joy when you look at it. And let me tell you this, even if you want to look at it from a strategy perspective, because I am a strategist, you're going to get better care if you have a good outlook. Nurses and doctors, they're going to do their job no matter what. But you know what? They always got excited about Damon and I stepping foot in their doctor's office because we, for one moment in their day, we made them laugh. We brought some joy with us. We weren't all, this is the end of the world. They deal with cancer all day. It is the end of the world most of the time. So just find some laughs wherever you can find them.
When you're going through stuff like that, and I've always wondered this, what's it mean when you've got people that you don't even necessarily know, like on social media or whatever, is saying, oh, you're in our thoughts, you're in our prayers, we're praying for you. does that help as a social network?
I'm going to be honest, there are times when those are kind of overwhelming. I'm praying for you. I really appreciate the prayers so much because I know that they worked, right? Like I'm going to say it. I think it was a miracle that there was no residual cancer in my pathology during surgery. I think they do work. It did become really strange. Let me tell you what was hard. I had to block a few people, Rob, because I shared so much, and know that I didn't share everything, right? Like I wasn't sharing all of the dirty details.
Mm-hmm.
But people are still very invested in my story, and they send advice. Man, let me tell you about some of this advice. People like to tell you how to cure cancer in your
Yeah.
direct messages. And I think that is where you're just like, whoa, hold on a second. We don't need that here. That's not necessary. So I don't know. I think social media is obviously, we know it's good and bad. It's good because you can reach so many people, and it's allowed me to meet other women who are my age with young children with a very similar type of cancer. And it's allowed us, we have like a text message group where we can message back and forth about who has their eyebrows back first and what products are you using to make your eyelashes come back. I'm serious. This is real life. It's a daily part of my life. We added someone else to our text group this week. She just had surgery and got her report this week, and she starts chemo next week. And I mean, we're walking her through it. So it's given me a really unique network that I didn't know that I needed. But it also, it brings out some well-meaning, crazy people as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Well, as you were saying that, I remember when you did, I think I retweeted. I consider you a friend, but like I said, I would have almost felt weird to put out a post out there to say, we need to be supporting Brooke or something, because I don't know, to me, it almost looks like I'm doing it for my own attention, whatever. So that's what I always wondered. Thankfully, I've never had to go through something like this where people you don't know are well invested into you. But I got to imagine there is some awkwardness in a lot of that. But anyway, I guess we'll move on from that because
Sure.
because yeah, obviously you don't want to give examples because then people know you're talking about them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do have to tell you, like, the small percentage of the awkward or the, oh, that's uncomfortable, there is a lot of really good has come out of this, right? I can tell you, Rob, I have so many screenshots on my phone where I am just like heartbroken because people are finding my story and it is helping them walk through chemo and cancer of a recent diagnosis, right? Because there is not a lot of information out there for cancer, for breast cancer specifically under 40, because you're not even eligible to get a mammogram until you're 40, right? Like, we're not supposed to have breast cancer under 40, but we do. That is the good that is coming out of it.
I was kind of unaware myself. The whole thing just kind of shocked me. And again, I want to apologize because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I wanted to reach out and say, "Are you okay?" But I figured you were being overwhelmed and all that. But yeah, so it is that. But let's move on.
Sure.
You're, like I said, you're not right in the head. You're a little nuts, right? So are you planning some big comeback?
Okay, so I think the glow up is about to be real. I think
whoa! What the hell
yeah,
did you just say?
the glow up. Oh
What's
my
just
gosh,
the glow up?
You have to get with the kids. So first of all, I started out as Frank the Potato. And I'm bald. So I'm telling you, I hit the streets with my stroller this week. There's two parallel things that are happening here. First, I have to get back in shape and look awesome, right? Like, I'm still in my young 30s, right? Early 30s. So like the glow up is like going from Frank the Potato to like looking normal again. So that's one. But the comeback, right? The comeback is I've had a lot of time to think about what am I good at as a professional. For me, that's my creativity. That's my copywriting. I say things in really unique ways. I see campaigns from really unique ways. And I've had a lot of time to think about what clients do I want to work with? Who do I want to work with? Say I only have 5 years left on this earth, right? Let's make it matter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the things that are really impactful. Let's not waste our time on the traditional clients who want to keep doing the same things over and over and over again that really don't move the needle at all. Like, who are the people who are ready to jump in the deep end and do something drastic? And I think that is part of the comeback. And so that's what I'm gearing up to do is finding those clients who are ready and willing to do the crazy things. And I'm ready to make it happen. Like, I've had a lot of time to lay around and think of some really cool, good ideas.
A lot of people have commented me on my website, and I say, well, yeah, I created it myself.
I mean, you should take credit for sure.
Oh, I did. Well, I wrote the check anyway, right?
Yeah.
You're good at what you do. You just are. Yeah, like even the social media posts that you do. Well, I know in working with you, you know, what you've done with you kind of drill yourself into my head, right? You kept asking us questions about, you know, what do you see or how do you want to be viewed? Stuff I've never really thought about, but you just have a very good way about, I don't know, putting stuff out there that's not been done a million times before.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the goal, right? If we're going to invest our time and our money, let's not do something that hasn't been working for other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to look for the Brooke Clay Taylor return tour.
Yes, that's the plan.
Are you selling tickets?
I should. No, I'm not. So here's what's been hard for me. So what I've been able to do my entire professional career, that's included travel to clients, is I've been able to creatively tack on 2 days to either the beginning or the end of a trip, and you really discover the United States, right? And I've been on the back burner. This is the most I've ever been in one place without going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think since I graduated college. And so I think the tour has to include getting out of my corner of the state and seeing something different than my four walls. And I think the whole world is going to feel that after the corona quarantine. So maybe we all need to go on tour together or parallel tours across the United States.
As you've been through all of this, though, what are some takeaway? What are some final thoughts that you have?
I'd say there's two things. People say, you know, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I think that's hogwash. I think he gives you more than you can handle so you can rely on him more. And on top of that, I don't think he gives you a new marriage, a baby, and a cancer in 1 year unless he's going to use you for something. Like, in a lot of ways, I think this is kind of the beginning of my story. It's like, okay, you did all of this. Now what? Like, I think this is where the good stuff starts to really happen.
You have an incredibly positive attitude about all this. Is that just natural, or do you work on that?
I think it's natural, honestly, but also, like, I don't mean to be, like, bragging or anything, but I'm kind of badass, Rob. Like, if you really look at it, my body grew a baby and a cancer and then killed a cancer in a year. So, like, that's pretty awesome.
It's again one of those things I'm not sure if I'm supposed to laugh at, but I can't help it.
Right? But it did. That's crazy. Like, it's crazy that our bodies can do that, and mine did. Like, if I ever have a bad day, I'm normal. I'm a human. I have bad days all the time. All I have to do is think about, oh my gosh, like, I literally killed cancer. Like, I went through all of these. Listen, I know we're supposed to call them medicines, but like poisons going through my body, and I survived it. Like, I survived all of the night sweats, the neuropathy, the tears. There's a meme that I need to send you, and it's really simple. It says F chemo, and in really small print at the bottom, it says, "I'ma still go though." And let me tell you, by the end of chemo, I would refuse to get out of bed because I knew, like, I was feeling good, right? Like, the way that chemo works, like, the day before you go get chemo again, like, you feel really great,
Mm-hmm.
or like as great as your new normal allows you to feel. And I would, like, hide under the covers, and my husband would, like, pull the covers back, and he would say, F chemo, and I, like, through tears, I'd say, "I'ma still go though." And, like, we just had to do it, right? Like, we just had to do it. Like, sometimes you're just like, well, I have to do this anyway. I can either be a Krabby Patty about it and be, like, a jerk to everyone, or I can just like pull myself up by my bootstraps and like put a smile on my face and at least have a good time while we're doing it.
Krabby Patty. I'm proud of you for this podcast for not doing too many pop culture references that I don't understand.
You're welcome. But you got Krabby Patty? Like, I think that's from SpongeBob.
I think it is too. SpongeBob started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Oh, you brought it back full circle. Yes. I'm proud of you for that one. I am.
Brooke, it's been an honor to call you a friend, and your story is amazing. But what's more amazing than that is your attitude about it all. And yes, I was fairly unaware that, breast cancer under 40 years old was a thing, but now I do. And anybody going through this is now going to know it too. So like you said, you've gone through all this, forgot to use you for other reasons. And it's a great attitude. And I'm so glad that you're not unbusy. I mean, you've got a baby, you've got all this stuff going on, but you still took the time to do the podcast, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. This means a lot, and honestly, it gives me some clout with my dad, who he's going to listen to, this podcast. He'll be like, wait a second, that's my daughter, and I might be the favorite child for the week. So really, I should be thanking you.
Yeah, and you can find the podcast on sharkfarmer.com if it works. I mean, most of the times it's a piece of crap.
Get out of here. Get out.
Brooke Clay, thank you so much for your positive attitude and sharing your story. And everybody else, we hope you catch us next time.
And thank you for listening to the Shark Farmer Podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for Shark Farmer to follow me on Twitter. Later.